Hello, empowered empaths, and welcome to the Power of Healing Your Energy show. I'm Christine Gold, and I'm a spiritual medium, intuitive energy coach, and old soul healer. This is a live show and podcast all about unconditional love, your light, your intuition, and your soul's purpose. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 35. This week's guest is Christian de la Huerta. He's an award-winning author, TEDx speaker, and personal transformation coach with over 30 years of experience. His new book is called Awakening the Soul of Power, and it's been described by music icon Gloria Estefan, a balm for the soul of anyone searching for truth and answers to life's difficult questions. Depression and anxiety are a side effect of not living your life intuitively, not trusting your gut, the lost connections with yourself and others. And I truly believe healing is the end of conflict within yourself, and that healing begins where the ego ends. This is Season 2, and you can find us live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 4 Mountain, 6 Eastern. A new guest and topic every week. Your soul's purpose is here. 2020, we were raising love in our 5D summit. Now we know better in 2021. We can go direct to source, and that's why we are creating the Christ Consciousness Summit. It will be live Saturday, June 5th. And June 6th from 10 till 3 Pacific, live streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. There will be prizes and giveaways. Replays can be found on my Facebook and YouTube pages. Please like, please subscribe, please share, please follow, and please rate and review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Come on in. Let us know where you're from. If you're new, please say hello. I know we have viewers and listeners from all over the world, and I'm sending you lots of love wherever you are. You are so needed, and that's why you're here. Thank you so much. And today's guest, very excited. And of course, we talk about Mercury retrograde. We already talked about that, but of course it came into this a little bit. So we worked around things. We used our breath and made sure we were calm, and everything just worked out as always. Christian is coming on, and I just finished reading his book last week. Amazing. So many nuggets, so many aha moments, so many epiphanies. And I'm sure when you read it, you're going to have your own, because everybody's journey is different, right? So, and stay tuned to the end, because we are giving away a copy of this book. So I'm going to welcome in Christian. Hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Christine. Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yes, we're so honored to have you. And I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Where are you in the world? I always ask.
I am in sunny Miami, Florida.
Ooh, and I bet you it's lovely there.
It is quite beautiful.
Wonderful. I actually know a few people that are there on vacation, so seems to be the hot spot right now.
Yeah, a lot of Canadians do come down here regularly, and especially this last year because of the pandemic, Florida pretty much stayed open. And it was not a bad place to be, considering because of the weather. We had access to outside open air restaurants most of the year.
Yes, absolutely. I've only been I've been to Miami just once, so. And it was briefly on my stopover to Jamaica, so I definitely have to come back.
Come back.
Patty, thank you so much. She's saying hello, and she's in Pennsylvania, and she's saying how much she loves Florida as well. So,
hey, Patty.
Wonderful. Patty's with us, and if you're love the show, please share this out. Gosh, there's so many. You've been doing this for 30 years, right? So
Long time.
long time, long time. And I wonder when you're working with clients, what is there like maybe a number one question, or is there something that you hear on a regular basis, or does it change depending on what year we're in or what decade we're in?
I think that's a great question. The themes that I tend to hear the most about, which reflect my retreats, and I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but a lot of people, as you know, have struggles with relationships, around relationships. So I have retreats, and the next book actually of the series is focused on relations specifically. Power, that's which the theme of this first book of the series. And so many of us struggle with issues around power and giving away our power and saying yes when inside we really feel no, and settling for less, playing small. And then the third one, which I know it's big, and it's a big theme for you too, which is purpose, like stepping into our purpose. And I love what it says in your intro, like you are needed now, because that definitely drives and informs me. I share that sense of urgency about the times, and I think that we're all being called. Like this is it. If anybody who's had the slightest suspicion that we have work to do as teachers, as healers, or as activists or promoters for change or for the awakening, this is it. This is the time we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and I really resonate with power and purpose, and I always ask, pay attention to synchronicities, and things happen for, there's a reason, and we really have to pay attention. And there's a reason we met, and there's a reason, we resonate so much, and you're all about the hero's journey. And, some of these chapters, I don't know who did the artwork, but I think this is very interesting. I just want to show like the illustration of the ego. And did you not compare it to Gollum? Because that's how I felt. Okay.
I did.
Yes. So I guess maybe many misperceptions are, of the ego, that it's evil, bad. What are your takes on Gollum and the ego?
Well, and that's a huge conversation too, as you know. And I love what your intro also said, or maybe somewhere I read that you said that healing begins where the ego ends.
Yes.
So if we want to have a sense of purpose, really step into our soul level calling. If we want to have relationships that have a chance at working, if we want to have a sense of personal power, we've got to understand what the ego is and how it works. And there's so much confusion around it. For most people who know the word will think, arrogance, inflated sense of self, and it is that, but it is so much more than that. And we don't have the time to really dive into it as I would in a retreat, but here's a great metaphor, a great image, a visual that helps us get it. If you put a baseball in the center of the stadium, that's what the ego is. Who we are is actually the stadium. And we've allowed this tiny, tiny, infinitesimal part of who we are to think that it is all of who we are. And we end up making choices, important, critical, consequential choices from its very limited and always fear-based perspective. So much to say about that. And so if we want to be free, we've got to understand what the ego is.
Mm-hmm. I know when I first started out on the journey, the path, I felt the same way. I thought it was something, I had to get rid of it.
Right.
So I think we all start like that, because if you're aware of it, and then of course we do the natural thing, and I hear this too, negative people, stay away from those people. It causes a separation.
Well, it is the separation. Mm-hmm. The ego is the false sense of separation. It's ultimately an illusion, and it's both a helpful illusion, like it's not a bad thing to have a sense of self. In fact, that is one of the things that makes us so successful as a species, is that we have a sense of who we are, like an individual identity. Like here's Christian, that's Christine. It's also the source of all our suffering. Because when the ego evolved in human beings, that was the first split in consciousness. Because of that, now we can have a sense of separation. We can feel lonely. We can feel abandoned. and all that stuff that comes from that illusion of separation. And you're right about, there are a lot of teachings that say you got to kill it, you got to get rid of it because it's the source of all our suffering, and that part of it is true. But my understanding of it is that it's not all bad, that it's not a bad thing to have a sense of individual personality, as long as we're aware that that's not all who we are. That's just part of the game of embodiment. And so that what we're going for is more is healing it, so that we're no longer reacting to past wounds and unresolved traumas from our past and a lifetime of suppressing emotions, but that we're actually removing it from its place. The ego has taken the place of the sun, has placed itself as if it were the sun. So what we're doing is like, hey, you're not the sun. Here, step out of it. You're way in over your head. And so we place it in service to, in orbit around the sun.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And let me know if you guys have any questions about, your purpose, about your soul, about your power, about ego transformation. Where are you in your journey? I'm always curious. And each path is not the same. Definitely not. Beginning of your book, there were so many chapters I really resonated with. I felt like I will say this, we've had a past life together at some point. I truly believe that. Your mentor at the time, when you started, asked you are you ready to step into who you are? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because then they had to call you later on and make sure you weren't going to do all those things that they said. I thought, oh man, I feel that one. No.
Yeah, we were at a retreat with maybe 30 people, and long story short, we got into this conversation about willingness. Like, what would you be willing to do for the sake of your freedom, of your transformation, of your awakening? And she kept asking the group, and she kept upping the game. So would you be willing to quit your job? And I'd raise my hand. Would you be willing to walk away from your family? And she kept upping it and upping it and upping it. And every time I was the only one who was there at the end out of the 30 people. And so a lot of people were kind of freaking out because, of course, they were applying those questions to themselves and seeing where they were, how far they were able to go or willing to go. And so, but the next morning she had one of her students call me and say, hey, don't quit your job. It was a study on willingness. But, a few months later, I did quit my job and sell my condo and break up with my partner at the time and give away or sell everything and walked away from my life, from my family even, not knowing when I would see them again. As it turned out, it wasn't more than a year before I was able to see them again. But when I made that choice, it was like I was being true to my willingness. I was willing to do whatever it took.
Yeah, and that's and why do you think you were willing to at that time, as opposed to maybe, like, I think of the analogy of smoking. I mean, I was a smoker for 20 years, and it took me many, many, many times. When people always ask me, and I'm like, because that was it. I was done. Yeah,
that's a great question, Christine. I don't know that I have an answer to that. Maybe it was a sense of readiness that one comes in with, maybe from past life choices. I don't know. I was at a point in my life where I had a very successful life, very enviable life. And yet it seemed that the more that I had, from the eyes of the world, the more that I was sought after professionally, socially, I kept thinking there has to be more to life. And I just got to that point where it was like that divine discontent. The more people wanted to be around me, the more it's like, no, there's just not enough. And I had gone through a period. I grew up really Catholic. And in my late teens, early 20s, I kind of stepped away from all that. And like many people, threw the baby out with the baptismal water because that religion didn't have room for me. So I think it was at the end of that phase of my 20s probably around the time of my Saturn return, where I started to like that process of questioning, like there has to be more to life. And I got really clear. I did my own personal retreat as I was approaching 30. I guess that marker was important. And I asked myself, like, spend a weekend, I didn't watch any TV, didn't listen to music, didn't distract myself, didn't read, asked my partner to leave me alone for the weekend. And I just lived in the question, what do I want from life? And I didn't judge it, right? So I didn't evaluate it. I just came up with a list. I'd have another thought. I came up with, started little by little creating a list. I got up to like 100 items. Then I started a process of elimination. What do I really want from life? I started eliminating. And finally, like after the whole weekend, I got it down to 3. And let me see if I remember what they were. I wanted to fulfill my soul level purpose, my potential, like what I was really here for. I wanted to discover what that was. I wanted to fulfill my potential in every sense of the word, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually, physically even. And I had neglected the spiritual for some years. And then I wanted to travel the world and meet and work with people from all cultures and all walks of life. I put my list away. I don't even know where it went. I never saw it again. It's probably sitting inside one of my books still. And I think that process of getting so clear was a powerful message to the universe. And within 6 months is when I first encountered that teacher and was doing breath work. And that first breath work session just changed everything.
Yeah, breath. I was watching. Yeah, it's a good segue. I'll talk about breath in a second. I just want to say hello to a few people. Tanya from Edmonton. That's where I came from. But thanks for joining. So nice to see you. TB is just talking about how she's going through transformation on her journey and feeling a lot of shifts with relationships, sense of self-worth, which can be bittersweet. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I have a few friends that work with the global energies, and they're talking a lot about Atlantis and that deep inner work that needs to be done too. So we're collectively going through that. We're sending you lots of love. Breath work. I did watch your TED Talk from 2013, and very, very well. I loved it. There were so many bits and pieces, but I like to read the comments too, because it's very interesting to hear what people say. And there was one gentleman that said, I came to his class after this TED Talk, a skeptic, and came out transformed. I was like, wow, that's some big kudos there.
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah. And I don't even take credit for it. It's the power of the breath. I don't take credit for the profound healing that happens in breathwork sessions. It's, I don't think we really understand how it works. The science isn't there yet. Like it still blows my mind. Like it boggles my mind, because I come out of the psychotherapy tradition. My dad was a psychiatrist. My degree's in psychology. I was on a track to get a PhD in psychology. When I did my first breathwork session, I jumped tracks. Like I never went for the PhD because it works so fast and heals so profoundly in so many levels. On top of that, it brings about, or it can provide an experience of the stadium, right? Stuff that we've read about, of connecting with, of being one with everything, of connecting with creations. Like you have moments of that where you pop out of the little baseball consciousness and really experience yourself as connected to it all, as part of the whole. And that is life-changing. And the only way that I can really make sense of how it works is more from a psycho-spiritual perspective. And if we look at most religions and spiritual traditions, and even some secular languages in the world, the same word, one word, can mean spirit or breath, depending on the context. So for example, pneuma, from the Greek word pneuma, we get both lung and like pneumonia, and it also meant soul. From the Latin spirare, from that root, we get both respiration and inspiration or expiration. So that connection between breath and spirit is found in all in most religions and in many, many different cultures. And it's from that perspective that allows me to understand how it can be so powerful. Because logically, it doesn't make sense. But I can't argue with results, Christine. I've witnessed such profound healing and experienced in myself. And I'm not talking, kind of wimpy healing. I'm talking people who have survived rape, sexual abuse, and horrible stuff that's happened to them, and that stuff gets healed permanently.
That's beautiful. I would agree. Like, as you're talking about breath, and I can just see you rising above the stadium, and I always talk about that perspective, and then it's like transcendence, like everything just stops, like time stops. Yeah, anyways. Beautifully said. And that you're doing some amazing work, because there is so much trauma to be healed. And it really, thank you for everything you do. I want to also touch on the women. It was brought up that you're really, I feel like a champion, a hero's champion for women. And you talk about, we talk about the women's archetype. So did you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, this book on empowerment is for everybody, because everybody struggles with our relationship to power. And we can talk more about that later. But it's particularly dedicated and has a message for women. And that stems from my conviction that the empowerment of women is the single most important thing that needs to happen in the world. And it's not to idealize women, it's not to put women up on a pedestal, it's not to give women more crap to have to clean up in this world. It's because the world, and as a species, we've been running so off balance between the masculine and the feminine. And I believe that when women are in 50% of power in this world, we're going to have a very different relationship to war and poverty and hunger and how we treat the environment and to all of it. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think about it strategically. And I'll add that this is really important for men too, because without minimizing the oppression of women and the horrible things that women have had to experience for the last several thousand years of the patriarchy and are still experiencing in parts of the world, and the inequity that is still prevalent even in this country and in yours, men also pay a price for this patriarchal power over structure. This relationship to power, which is hierarchical, and that needs for us to push somebody down, step on them, put our knee to their neck even in order for us to feel powerful. So it's the kind of power that's connected with fear and force and domination. And it's also connected to this twisted understanding of what it means to be a man, which is a prison. Because we've got this, and here are some of the numbers. I don't know the numbers in Canada, but in terms of suicide in the US, mm-hmm. Men commit suicide 4 times as frequently as women. 70% of the suicides in this country are committed by middle-aged white men, which is interesting because those are the ones who still hold the majority of the power in the world. And if we look at longevity, women in the US outlive men by 5 years. If we look at the numbers globally, it's by 7 years. What's up with that? What is going on there? And I think that part of it is that we've got this twisted thinking about what it means to be a man, and we have to walk around like unfeeling, uncaring robots because the emotions are supposed to be weakness. Who said? And because the feminine is supposed to be weakness. Who said? And like, what a twisted understanding of the feminine as well. And what a price to pay, because as you know, the emotions are not good, they're not bad, they're not strength, they're not weakness, they're just energy, like everything else in creation. Mm-hmm. Energy, we know from quantum physics, cannot be destroyed. So just because we suppress our energies, and I know men are not the only ones who do this, women, of course, do this as well. As long as we keep suppressing our energy, that stuff doesn't go away.
No.
It lingers, it gets stuck in the tissues of our body. And after a lifetime of doing that, we walk around with layers upon layers upon layers of emotional crap. And here we are trying to have a relationship, which is one of the reasons our relationships don't work. So we're trying to have a relationship in the moment, and it's all getting filtered through that lifetime of unhealed, unresolved past trauma and suppressed emotional crap. And if what happens is if when we suppress and we suppress and we suppress, that energy is going to come out one way or another. So either the next unfortunate one just rubs us the wrong way, and then we explode inappropriately, like a volcanic eruption, bringing harm to our relationships, sometimes irreparably, or that energy is going to start seeping out through physical symptoms, heart attack, cancer, ulcers. So we've got to get clean with our relationship to power, and we've got to learn how to feel our emotions, how to increase our emotional intelligence, and learn how to communicate those feelings responsibly, courageously, and compassionately.
Yes, very well said. I absolutely agree with that. I know that everything's being torn down, and I talk about connection, community, collaboration, bridging, healing. Those are, unconditional love, forgiveness. It's all part of it. But I always, I ask, just pick one thing and really go through it instead of gathering 20 things.
Yes.
And trying to do it, but then you get little bits and then you toss it away, and then you're back to where you were before. I think the only one that likes to chase its tail is a dog. Anyways.
you would think.
TV is she's saying willingness is definitely key. She's saying amen to that. We've got quite a bit of conversations here. Patty's talking about that she's going through something. She's not sure where I am on my journey. I'm trying to manifest dreams, but I heard today that it's not to happen. It won't. So how do you know if it's meant to be? I've been going through a lot. I'm a healer and I'm healing myself. So many emotions, going through so much. What are your thoughts on that? What do you feel about manifesting? And if it doesn't happen, I have thoughts, but I thought maybe I'd ask you.
Sometimes it's just not on the timing that we think it's going to happen.
Mm.
So like you were saying before, I'm very much in tune to the signs from the universe. And no, it's not necessary a no. A no might be just like a slight adjustment to the path, like a slight, not quite here, but here, go this way slightly. When in doubt, go within. Like whatever methodology you have to go in, whether it's formal meditation or sitting in front of with your back next to a tree or by the water, whatever works for you to go in, just go with it. Pause, and try to get beneath the craziness, the chatter of the ego, of the monkey mind, and listen to the inner truth. The language of the stadium is very simple. The language of the ego is always, the ego, I say, went through a law school. So it's always trying to build a case and prove why it's right. And so it's bringing in words and using big concepts and building a case. Whereas the language of the stadium, call it the soul, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, is very simple and is that still quiet voice inside. So we've got to get past the crazy chatter of the mind so that we can hear it. Because this language is very simple, and it'll say things like, yep, nope, I wouldn't go there, do that. When do we get into trouble? When we override it and we go there anyway. Every time.
Yeah, I would agree. It's very subtle. It's of love and light. Like you could be driving down the street and you normally go right on your commute, and this time it says go left. So you do, and you avoided a huge traffic accident, snarl, whatever it is. I always say rejection is God's protection.
Yeah.
And if one door closes or it's not opening, it's not your door. I heard that too. It's not your door. There's 100 more that'll open.
Exactly.
So we got to practice non-attachment.
Exactly. And just staying in the flow, like staying present and in the flow. Like today I had to go run an errand and I must have hit every single red light. A couple of times people, like a big truck backed up and held me up for like 2 minutes. And so, all right, like the normal thing is, the human thing is to get frustrated. And I started to, and said, wait a minute, you know, if I'm gonna walk my dog, you know, the universe has my back. So this is a collaborative relationship here. This is not happening to me. What if it's happening for me? So maybe I'm being slowed down to avoid an accident. Maybe I was supposed to meet somebody at the grocery store I was going to run an errand. But nothing happened along the way until I got home and I realized that I'd been listening to this show on National Public Radio, which gave me this idea to contact one of the producers because of a show that they announced that's happening that is very relevant to what we're talking about today. So I thought, what if it was about that? If I had been a little bit quicker or too much slower, if I hadn't been in just that Goldilocks moment where I heard that 2-minute end of the interview, I may not have heard it. Mm-hmm. You never know.
That is very true. Yeah. And that's great that you recognize that. And it's funny you say Goldilocks. That was my nickname in high school. Anyways.
That's great.
Funny. TV is just saying, thank you for sharing. You two resonates a lot. And thank you for being here, TV.
Yes. Thank you, TV.
She's agreeing to raising the feminine divine. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, Patty's been going through a few losses, and I'm sending you lots of love with your friend. My goodness. And it's fun, it's interesting you brought that statistic up. So we really need to make sure we're very aware of, what's going on and how we can help each other as much as possible.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have gotten any messages around this, Christine, but I know at least 3 or 4 people, not personally, but very close people to people that are close to me, who have checked out in the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, no, I would agree. There's a lot. I get messages on a daily now. People, they're like, I'm losing it. I can't do this anymore. Help me. I'm in crisis mode. That's what I'm hearing. It's almost like, I guess I want to reiterate, if maybe you've slipped out of your gratitude journals, whatever it is, your meditations, a book, whatever, a practice, please get back into it, or find something or ask for somebody for help. We are so good at giving. Ask for help and receive it too. I posted about that a couple days ago. So
yes, and if anybody's having a tough time, remember that we are all needed now. Like, just to go back to that message from the beginning of of this interview, our conversation, it's all hands on deck, right? All hands on deck. And if you're listening to this, chances are pretty good you've got work to do.
Yes,
that you signed up for. So we are needed now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's not about me; it's about we. It's
Exactly.
a collective, right?
Exactly.
We have to shift. We're in service for others, because I really feel, as long as you're not a people pleaser or a rescuer, to be in service for someone else, I don't want to say it takes away your problems or how you're feeling, but perspective, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It really gives perspective, and it lifts your vibrations.
That's it. It pops us out of that poor me,
the victim consciousness,
of the victim of the ego.
Yes,
it pops us out of the ego.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you're a couple parts of your book. Well, there were so many about playing small. How do you think we play small?
Oh my God, so many ways. So many ways that we adjust ourselves. We tone our light down. We tune it down to, out of fear of rejection, out of fear, like, if I really be all of who I am, if I really stepped into all my power, then people might not like me. People might judge me. All the reasons, I might have to be accountable, then show up, continue showing up the rest of my life, whatever fear that is. But it is such a tragic choice to make, because I think by now anybody listening to this knows that there isn't any relationship that's going to make us happy. and how unfair to put that responsibility on any other human to make us happy, and that there is no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of in the eyes of the world, no amount of travel that's going to fulfill us. All that stuff is great, not knocking any of it, but it's not going to make us happy. From my perspective, the only thing that's going to make us happy is when we fulfill our unique human potential. And when we think about it, there isn't anybody out there in this universe or any other universe that has the same genetics and the same set of experiences that make each one who we are, uniquely who we are. If we don't give full expression to that, not half-assed, full-assed expression to that, ain't nobody else gonna do it.
Full-assed?
Full-assed.
I like that. Sorry. Yeah, I always say don't half-ass it. You know?
Don't half-ass it. Full-ass it.
Too funny. I love it. I love it. Yeah, and then I think that really ties in, because I hear from people, well, I feel like I'm the black sheep, or I just don't fit in. And I always say, you are not meant to. Those are labels and standards and programs. They want you to just put the blinders on and hope you don't notice anything along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we continue giving expression to all our fullness, yeah, for sure, there's some people who are in our life now who are not gonna be there. They're not gonna resonate with us at the vibration that we're gonna increase to. But guarantee you that there are other people that are gonna see you and are gonna want to be with you, and that are really gonna resonate with you and be part of your life in ways that we cannot even imagine, from the limited perspective of the ego. And so, yeah, when I went on my spiritual journey 30 years ago, I was bemoaning, that I didn't know how long it was going to be before I saw my family. I was really, had chosen to was kind of a monastic life for 5 years, mostly celibate, 1 year of complete celibacy. And so I was sad that my family was over here, like sad about me because they thought that I joined a cult or lost my way. And I was over there sad about how they were stuck in such a limited perspective of what God is. And my teacher at the time said something to me that was really helpful, and in relationship to my family, because that was the hardest part for me. And she said, what's of God, and if that word doesn't work for you, what's of love on this side of the transformation process will be there on the other side. And sure enough, like we may be in the midst of the transformational process, which is chaotic, it feels confusing, but at some point it stabilizes and we end up at the next rung of the ladder. And what's true, what's of love will be there with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. The love that, be the love, you want to see in the world. That's usually, what I go back to. So, TB is just talking about when people preach love and light, she disagrees. It's not healthy. Well, yeah, that's spiritual bypassing. You really gotta, yes. you can't be all flaky all the time. Sometimes you have to.
That's funny. It's okay to feel caca.
Yeah. Oh, she's too funny. Okay to move through it and not stay there. Yeah, she's got quite the sense of humor. Yeah. Sherry.
Before you move on from that, I wanted to say that I wrote a piece a few years ago that you can't namaste the shadow away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. If you want to be free, you got to be willing. You got to have the courage to go in there and face those inner demons, and the rewards are infinite. Freedom.
Yeah.
And personal empowerment.
Absolutely.
But that's why it's heroic. That's why I'm into the hero's journey, because it's nothing short of heroic.
Absolutely. And we both read the same book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Oh, that book, a box of tissues every time. It just blows me away.
Yeah.
And whenever you start feeling sorry for yourself or getting into that victim, whatever mentality, you read some, his chapters, or just know who he is and go, oh, that's right. Thank you for bringing me back.
Yeah.
Sherry's just talking about learning to live with my ego. Yes, we definitely agree. Listen and thank and tune into the Holy Spirit and go with it. It's a learning curve. I'm listening more to my higher thoughts, but balance is a continual effort. Yeah, micro adjustments, as Michael would say as well. So she's just saying the more I heal and learn, the more the collective does. Absolutely. That's why I think, global meditations, or even if it's one person that wants to meditate or heal, it's amazing what happens. So, all right. So is there anything else you wanted to share? I know you have, this is a Heroes series, so there's book 2 and book 3.
Yeah. Book 2 is on relationships, attracting and nurturing relationships that work. That's probably going to come out in around Valentine's Day of 2022.
Nice.
And then the last one is on life purpose and conscious leadership the following year.
Yeah. I love that. And great series, great topics. His book is fantastic. There's some artwork in here. There's a lot of quotes. I think I heard you say that you specifically made the chapters small because
we live in such an ADD society. And our attention span is like, we're so distractible. So many distractions in our lives. And I also wanted to be more manageable, more piecemeal. And so what I did with it is small chapters, short chapters, so you can just read it in 10 minutes. What is different, though, and I would really encourage people to do, is to take a few minutes. It won't take that long, and do the power practices at the end, because that's what's going to help integrate the teachings and the concepts into our lives, so that it doesn't stay at the level of information, and it's actually transformation, which is what we want.
Absolutely. And going back to the chapters, and you're talking about the power practices, chapter 25, I just went randomly and looked, upgrading to a new version of masculinity. Now, we just talked about that.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing a lot of, lion energy, dragons, warrior type archetypes coming through online and with the people that I talk with. But, you're talking about the warrior archetype. And, it's about someone who exhibits and the courage to go within and slay their inner demons, their limitations, to be fiercely and unapologetically authentic in self-expression, no matter what, dare to feel, but also express responsibly, not just, all over everybody, with courage and compassion.
Right.
Say no to injustice and abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And be willing to do the work and lead with integrity. And I love how you tie in the words like integrity is integer, which means whole. And I'm like, I love that, because then it takes me in a new thought process. But your power practices with this chapter is asking people, what qualities do you associate with the masculine? What do you associate with the feminine? So commit to trying, like, for example, you're saying if you gravitate to the protector, you might volunteer at a local animal shelter. So really integrating into those power practices. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So what I try to do in that chapter is because so much of the messages about women's empowerment, I thought we can't leave men behind either. So because of the reasons that we were talking about before and others, so that chapter is about what it means to be a man in the 21st century. So it's about upgrading how we look at masculinity and what it means to be a man, because that is part of the problem, that as women are stepping into their power, and because of outsourcing and development of computers and robotics and all that kind of stuff, a lot of men whose identity was associated with being like the provider suddenly either lost their job or their wives are making more money and they're having an identity crisis. And so what the purpose of that chapter is like, wait a minute, there are other ways to provide, right? Like provide and anchor a place, an oasis of safety, emotional, psychological, spiritual safety in your home. Be the rock for your family. Like there's so many ways, so many other things to provide that don't have to be limited to a paycheck. It's like, is that how you're going to define your masculinity? it's a limited way of defining what it means to be a man.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would ask people, who are you? And many times the title would come out, and it's like, it was so sad.
It is sad. And Christine, that's one of the ways in which, without diminishing the tragic parts of it, but one of the gifts of COVID, if we're going to be open to the lessons that it may have for us, is that it's forced many people to, like, so many jobs. So how many of us had our identity connected to a job or a particular company that we worked for, and suddenly, boom, closed the doors, gone.
Yeah.
And so many people were thrown into that crisis that you're talking about. Who am I if I'm not that? So it's tough. I'm not minimizing that part of it. But the heroic part of it is if we take the opportunity to go within and do the work of, like, who really am I? Then it's so worth it. So the rewards are infinite.
Yeah, you really start unraveling all the things that when you talk about weight and density and heaviness, all those layers just start. It's like, oh, this isn't mine, and this is definitely not mine, and that's not. No, that isn't. Yeah, it's eye-opening. I love that. I love it. It's like a kaleidoscope of colors, which you absolutely are.
Yeah, and that's heroic work, because what you're referring to is, and pointing us to, is like, why do we do the things we do? Why do we believe the things that we do? Like, so many things that we just believe unquestioningly, that we were conditioned by family or culture, society, religion, that we don't even question why we believe those things. And it takes work to unpack. Yeah. But again, it's so worth it, and nothing short of heroic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Patty is asking about, are your books on Hay House? But I believe that you can get them.
Yeah, the books are not on Hay House, but they're available on Amazon or at your local bookstore, wherever books are sold.
There you go, Amazon. There you go. And speaking of book, we are giving away a copy of Awakening the Soul of Power. And as you can see, I've got lots of tabs and things highlighted. But if you'd like to win a copy of this, whether you're on the replay or you're live, just comment power, and we'll make the draw Tuesday. And
a signed book.
Signed. Ooh, even better. Yes, I got a signed copy as well. And I love it. Very nice. Thank you for answering the call of heroes.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, and I mean that. Thank you for answering the call for heroes.
Absolutely. And I always ask 2 questions before we end the show.
And before you ask me that, I want to say a little bit more about what I just said.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I read a little bit about your journey, and it wasn't a wimpy journey. It's like, it was, the burnout, the homelessness, the hopelessness, the narcissistic relationship, depression, considering suicide. That's not a wimpy journey. That's a heroic journey. And the fact that you are on the other side of that, and that you answered the call, and that you are stepped into your power and into your purpose, and that you're an instrument to make a difference in so many different lives. It's like, thank you, sister.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You sharing that with me. That makes heartfelt joy and gratitude. Sending lots of love. I'm glad that you mirrored that back, because many times we will just be like, oh yeah, but when somebody actually says it to you and they've taken the time to look and recognize and see you for who you are, transformational and
stuff of heroes.
Yes.
I don't say that lightly.
Thank you. And thank you so much. How can we as a collective energy help make your dreams come true?
Do you know what? I'm on a mission. It's like, I come from, like, paraphrasing Einstein, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness in which it was created. So when I think about the world and the shape that we're in, and how are we ever going to dig ourselves out of this hole that we have collectively dug ourselves into, the only answer I see, it's nothing short of a spiritual awakening, a leap in conscious evolution. And so this book and my work is is my goal is to reach as many people, to support as many people to do that. And hopefully there's something to that 100th monkey effect. Like, I know that the original story was not real, but I think that there is something to that critical mass. Mm-hmm. And so that is our job, right? Anybody who's listening to this, that is our calling, to help as many others as possible now to wake up, to really step into our power, into our purpose, into our stadium nature, outside of to disidentify with a baseball and re-identify with a stadium, because that's what's going to get us out of this situation, and not a moment too soon.
Love it. Love it. You guys ready to heed the call?
Yeah.
Let's do this, you know.
And help me spread the message, you know.
Yes.
Send links about the book. Let's do this, people.
Absolutely. Love that. And for me, magic is everything. So what does magic mean to you?
Oh, I love that. Magic is when we step outside of the limited reality of the baseball and we step into the universe of the stadium. Magic and miracles are commonplace.
Ooh, yes. Amen. Mm-hmm. Love that. Love that.
And it's the kind of stuff that we were talking about, the synchronicities, the stuff that our little minds could never, ever come up with. You know, the synchronizing of schedules and things that need to happen so that two people meet at a certain point, or this opportunity presents. Is like, my little mind could never come up with that.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Gosh, thank you so much. Patty is ready to win, so I'm sure there'll be more.
Good luck, Patty.
Yes, good luck, Patty. And she's saying you're amazing, both of you. Thank you so much. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for joining us. And thank you for sharing too, Patty. You've been a great cheerleader and supporter of 24 Karat Healing and the Power of Healing Your Energy show. Sending you lots of love. All right. So all the links to Christian's work, his retreats. I know there's retreats, right? I've read, like, in the back of the book, you've listed all your coaching and retreats, and I really appreciate that. Love the artwork as well.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't do any retreats, of course, last year, but I've started to schedule them towards the end of this year.
Yes. Amazing. I look forward to it. And I'd actually like to be part of one as well. So.
Oh my God, Christine, I would love to. I look forward to meeting you in third dimensional reality.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, I'm sending you so much love. And please let me know how, you're doing. If you're ready to take the hero's journey, if you're not sure what that is or what that looks like, feel free to reach out. And please remember, healing begins where the ego ends. Thank you so much.